developing corporate clubs. I've not always been supportive, but I've watched you over the years, Madam past international president, and so I'm particularly pleased at this time to be hearing from you and to be sharing this session. I was fortunate enough to get one of the first copies that were at convention, and I have read through it cover to cover. I'm so pleased with the information, and I am sure that all of us here in District 81 will appreciate. For our members who are online, Pat Johnson is indeed a past international president, but even though she is no longer international president, she remains active and remains very, very focused on developing Toastmasters. I know that one of her fortes is ensuring that corporations who host a Toastmasters program are aware, are very keen on how it is that Toastmasters can help them achieve their bottom line. And having heard her speak on this topic, I know that she has a lot to offer us. We will hear from Pat Johnson just now, and then thereafter, if you have questions, put your questions in the field and we will make sure that we have an opportunity to answer them. Welcome, past international president Pat, and we are good to go. You are on.
Thank you so much, District 81, for inviting me to be, oh, sorry, I have a phone ringing in the background. Someone else calling. Thank you so much, District 81, for inviting me and allowing me to be part of your virtual meeting. What an honor for me. And I have great fond memories and pictures of when I visited District 81 and first met Essie in person, and hopefully many of you that are on the line today. So thank you for inviting me to be part of your day and giving me the gift of time to talk about something that I'm very passionate about. Just to give a bit of background about me and how this came about, just very briefly. My professional career was in the corporate world, and in that world, I bought education for our corporate employees. I was responsible for learning and development or organizational development, training, whatever it was called that year. And so I saw a lot of vendors. I saw a lot of people with curriculum arrive in the workplace attempting to sell me something that they thought would change the lives and the skills set of the people in our corporation. And I was in the position where I had the autonomy and the money to buy what they were pitching if I thought that it met the needs. Now, I was responsible for doing the needs assessment in my corporation and knowing what in fact our employees needed. So when I sat in that and I visited many districts and went with the club growth directors or the lieutenant governors of marketing earlier to the corporations and did the visits, I started analyzing what worked and didn't work. And if I put myself in the seat of the person that we were supposedly selling Toastmasters to or pitching Toastmasters to, and I thought, would I buy? And so then I started getting a bit more direct when we were getting ready to go into corporations, and I started thinking we need to be more professional. We need to look like the other big companies that come in to present training and curriculum. So I started so I started not taking any materials in with me and making it not about us, but making about what the corporation actually needed. What were their training needs and how could we possibly fill them? And so that's where I started this whole process from, is looking at me sitting in the buying chair and saying, would I buy from these people? Would I buy this curriculum? And what I discovered was that the majority of people that were in talking about Toastmasters only sold the club environment, which was very small and which would not be suited in a lot of corporate environments. The term club was not respected for the most part. They didn't know what to do with us. They didn't know how to fit us into their training, and they weren't against it necessarily, but they appeared to be quite indifferent to it. Now, what turned it for me in my experience was going in and asking them what they needed in the field of communication and leadership. And it was going right back to the whole concept of looking at what their needs are, their needs assessment. And if they had done their needs assessment, they could tell us what they were looking for in terms of communication and leadership tools. So one thing I knew from being in that field was that communication skills, you can buy them. They're easy to buy. You can buy a public speaking course. Most people won't. But some of them are looking for good communication skills. So particularly the feedback, the listening skills, and the critical thinking skills. A lot of them aren't looking for speaking skills because they already think they can speak. And they think that they have lots to say and they speak, and they don't need, from their assessment, they don't need speaking skills, but they need listening, they need feedback skills, and they need critical thinking skills. And so in the package of communication, we meet that need. And then for sure, what I knew was that leadership training was almost impossible to buy on the market. Particularly if you were looking for anything that was less than thousands of dollars and wasn't aimed at high executive officers. So I thought, well, this is where Toastmasters really meets the need in the workplace for the up and coming professionals, for the people that are supervisors, for new managers, for employees that are looking to get promoted to supervisor, that needed to learn how to work with people, how to build a team, how to listen well, how to provide feedback, all those transferable skills that Toastmasters provides. The other thing that actually occurs is that we actually teach emotional intelligence. We don't state it anywhere, but by simply coming together in the kind of environment we come together in, and we have standards, we have values that we ask people to comply with, we give feedback, we have fellowship, we build teams together, that we really work on people's emotion, with people developing emotional intelligence as well. So all of those things were critical to me when I thought, what do I bring, or what do we bring to the corporate world when we go in there? So this is a very broad topic that I could keep you for probably a full day and we could have a great conversation about it. But obviously that's not going to happen. Essie's going to cut me off before that even comes near that. So I want to cover a couple of things. First of all, I want to know how many, and maybe Essie can send me this information in the chat bar, how many corporate programs or clubs does District 81 currently have?
Hi, Pat. There are about, I can send you the exact number, but we have only just started to grow in terms of corporate clubs. Originally, we found that corporate clubs did not do as well. Here in Jamaica, for example, we have had at least 4 clubs that have started and have folded. And I completely understand why, having listened to you. Well, I will send you the list.
That's great, just to have an idea, because some districts are all corporate, and I know that District 81 isn't, but I was just wondering what the status was. So you may have less than, maybe you have half a dozen, 6 or something like that for a club. So that's useful. So it helps me realize that the majority of the people in your district would be looking at building or perhaps repairing, or, well, not even having to fix, but doing things differently to support the current corporate programs that are there. So it's quite a paradigm shift. And thank you, Essie, for that information. Let's start at the very beginning. When we're going to go into a corporation, there's some basic things, and Essie can share this information with you, some basic criteria that we look for when we're going to go into a corporation, just so that we know it is sustainable. We want to have a certain number of people in one location. If they meet virtually, then how many employees do they have that they actually reach virtually, and can they set this learning up this way? The most important thing that I ask when I get involved with a corporation, potentially for a Toastmasters program, is that how do they run their current education? And this is different than creating a community club. So you really need to put your hat on that is corporate world. And when you show up for the corporate world, it's really important that we talk and understand how they run their business, because we're asking to be taken into their training department, into their business. We're not asking them to come over and do what we do, because they've already got established a successful business, and we want to be part of their education program. So that's a shift. A couple of other things that I suggest when you're looking at going into the corporation is that you set aside what you do in your corporate or in your community club, because a lot of it's not going to transfer over. The very basic, raw, bare bones of the Toastmaster program is what we take to the corporate world. But a lot of the stuff we do in our community club is not going to transfer into most corporations. So when I set up the first meeting, or the district sets up the first meeting for you to go in and meet with the corporation, I believe the most important thing that we can take with us that day is a knowledge of the global organization, and most importantly, take a curiosity about that corporation and ask them what they want and what they're looking for, and how we could possibly meet their needs. What training needs do they have that aren't currently being met? And then be ready to talk about the transferable skills, what they can get out of the Toastmasters program. And this is usually what closes the deal in the corporate world, is that we've got 94 years of history, we've got a proven curriculum, we've got millions of graduates, we've currently got 350,000 people enrolled in the program at any one time. We're in over 140 countries. We've got credibility. And that right away gives us standing in the corporate world. And then we talk about that we'll come in, we bring the curriculum, and they need to partner with us. And this is where it really changes from the community club to a corporate program. So they need to welcome us into their environment, and we need to be willing to go as providers of education in their environment. So the very first meeting that we have, if it's an introductory meeting, first of all, I would go in and meet the person that can make the decision. And often that's a person in training, it's a person at the head of HR, somebody that's got the potential to make the decision whether this will meet their training needs or not. One of the things that I caution you is, if you're speaking to somebody who's not the decision maker and they say, oh, I'll go talk to Brenda and tell her about what you've told me, and then I'll get back to you. I would ensure that I get invited to that conversation with Brenda, because the very fact of letting someone who doesn't understand our product sell it to Brenda is a disservice for us. They can't answer the questions. They can't explain how we'll meet their needs. They don't understand the depth and breadth of our program. So really important to somehow support that person and make their life easy in representing this program to the decision maker. So however that works, it's different in every organization, and you need to find out how that'll happen, but be willing to be on a phone or set up a meeting somehow so that you can be present to represent our product. So that's really important. In that meeting also with whoever it is, hopefully the decision maker, there's a number of things that I ask of them before we're willing to go in with the program. First of all, I want to know how they set up their regular training. Do they have a training catalog? Is that catalog advertise all their events that they put on? When are they going to schedule the Toastmasters program? Because it is a weekly program. That is it in the catalog advertised. How many training days do they allow their employees generally in their corporate policy? Because that affects employees asking to attend a weekly Toastmaster program that takes 1 hour a week. So is there policy in place already in that corporation that supports us coming in on that program? And it may turn out that because of existing policies, we offer the program every 2 weeks. But I would caution against offering it any less than that, because you're looking at an expectation that there's skills coming out of this program. And if you've got 20 to 30 people in that program at one time, and it's experiential, which takes more time, you want product coming out of there. You want people coming out with skills and showing up as a graduate of the program, or not even a graduate, but a participant. So really to have the opportunity for those people to practice their skills on a weekly basis. You also want to have the discussion about who's paying and how does it get paid, and who provides the time. Now, the way I say this is, do you provide training hours for your employee? I don't say that we're going to squeeze Toastmasters into your lunch hour or after work. I want it part of, my approach is to have it part of the training programs offered in the corporation. I don't suspect that they ask people to go to project management course on their lunch hour or after work. They do not ask people to go to conflict resolution programs after hours. They send them during work hours because it's professional development. And that's a big mind shift for a lot of us in Toastmasters, is to shift that we're professional development in the corporation. We're not a fun game after work for people to play and or to get together and have fellowship. That's not what it is in the corporate world. And yeah, they'll get to work on a team and be together, absolutely, but that's a byproduct. And that is what we talk about in morale and team building in the corporation. So it's not fellowship. That's not what the corporation's going to buy. They're going to buy morale, employee retention, team building. So it's money, it's time, it's how they're going to promote it. And then I also talk about the need for them in the understanding between us, just as we would contract any provider of education in the corporate world. They need to, so we talk to them about, is there going to be a set place? Like they may have a training room that all the training happens in, but we want to know that also, because we have a unique delivery method. And that's what sets Toastmasters apart in the marketplace, is our unique delivery method. That means it's hands-on, it's experiential, it takes more time, but it's transformational for the people. You can't sit in a Toastmasters meeting or session and hide out. You eventually get called for table topics at the very least if you're trying to hide, or somebody asks you to step in as an evaluator. So you're forced at some level, to the degree of your learning path, to step in. And so there's accountability as well. So I ask the corporation also that if they feel that they're capable of ensuring that there's anywhere from 20 to 25, 30 people at all times in that program. Because our Toastmasters curriculum says that it's the best, our maximum, or our optimum performance is 20 plus people. And so I asked them to provide more than 20 participants at all times in that program. And that's their obligation. So when I sat in the training office of the corporation, I was responsible to make sure that my staff filled all those programs with the minimum required people for that program to run. And if it wasn't filled, we canceled the program. So it's one of the criteria for Toastmasters to say, you have to be able to provide, we require that you provide more than 20 people at all times in this program, or our unique delivery method doesn't work. Because we've got a number of roles that take place, and we want people to be able to listen, use their listening skills to sit back and observe as well, because next week they may be taking on that role, so they need to observe it. So there's no such thing as a passive attendee. There's always a role to be taken on, whether that's an audience member providing ad hoc feedback, supporting, learning how to be a team member. So it's all really important. So those are some of the things that I talk about in that first meeting and get an understanding, because the next step, I need that information. I need that information, or we need that information when we go in to have the information or demonstration meeting. And I suggest in my book format for this information meeting that is demonstrated by Rick Furbush. And he's got YouTubes out. I also give the link for some of his YouTubes. And this is a model that I use, and I'm grateful for Rick for creating this and sharing it, because I've gone in with 2 people and done a demonstration meeting and sold the program. It's so easy to enroll people in Toastmasters. It's easy. There's no selling involved. We just have to ask the question, like, what else do you need to make the decision today? And people want to sign up because we're reliable, we're predictable, we're credible, and we've got an amazing product. So, you know, we just need to help them make the decision by giving them the information and answering all their questions. So when we have the information meeting, and I won't spend any time talking about this other than to say, determine ahead of time who the corporation wants to come to the information meeting. Because often they'll invite their managers and supervisors, not the people that they're going to have in the program necessarily, but they'll often invite their supervisors and managers, because these are the people that ultimately are approving the attendance of their employees to attend this program. And they may end up attending themselves as well. But this is a place where we let them know what the program is about. And I really support Rick's information agenda this way, because it allows them to experience giving evaluation, doing impromptu speaking, being part of the program, and seeing how simplistic it is, but yet how powerful the program can be. And they get to experience a bit of Toastmasters rather than sitting and listening to us do our stuff and show off and talk about our achievements. For the most part, people aren't really interested in what worked for Pat Johnson or for Fabiola. They want to know what's going to work for me, right? What's going to work for my people. And so that's really important to focus on that. So skip over that and say that they've agreed and they wanted to bring the program into their corporation. This is again where we work with them from the district level to work with them to help set the agenda. So we really, as a district, it's important to determine what is the agenda that we're going to run in that Toastmasters program in the corporate world, so that we have consistency. And here's where I suggest that we take out all the stuff that wouldn't stand up in corporate scrutiny. So if you have a quiz master, if you have a joke master, if you have a awe counter. Grammarian works, but I wouldn't just have an awe counter by itself, maybe combine them. So clean it up so that it looks very corporate. And it's, my test always is, if the CEO was standing in the doorway watching this program unfold, could they ultimately relate to everything that was being said in that program, that, I see where this works for my organization. This is money and time well spent. Because in Toastmasters, the greatest investment is the time, not the money, right? It's the time. So we really need to make sure that that's clean. And I know Fabiola has a copy of that agenda also that I suggest, and Essie. So some of the people in your district can support you with that. So then if that is set up, then we have, after the information meeting, and they start sending people, once they notify us that they've got people sufficient to hold the program, you know, we need to talk to them about how long they're going to support their employees in being in the program. And what I've discovered for the most part this is just in Canada now that I've had personal experience on an ongoing basis with corporate programs, is that the tendency seems to be settling in to about 2 years, where a corporation saying, I'm willing to spend whatever it is, a few $100s, but this many hours, and I'm willing to support my employees to go for up to 2 years in the program. So that's what our federal government's doing in Canada, and that's what some of our crown corporations and our provincial government is doing, and that's what their policies are that they've established. And it'll be different everywhere you are also, but again, to check that out and see how long they're willing to support someone. It does take a period of time, and leadership training experientially does take time. So you need to, ideally know what their support is so that they know what they're telling their employees as well. Some of the other things that I share with the organization that's bringing us in, or the corporation, is that the unique delivery system that we have with Toastmasters, the Toastmasters program. So I talk about that they really need to adopt the program, bring it into their learning branch. They need to provide all the physical, the money, the time, the resources for this to happen. We'll bring in the curriculum, and what we'll do on an ongoing basis is to ensure that our unique delivery method is sustained. And this is where we look at our club sponsored, let's call it a Toastmaster program, our Toastmaster program in the corporate world, the sponsors, the mentors, and the liaison person that's created at the district level, and a team that reaches out to the corporate programs to ensure that they're being well taken care of. So when I suggest strongly that the sponsors stay for a minimum of 6 months, because you've suddenly got a room full of corporate people, and that we're going to be watched very closely to look for results in that first 6 months. Those sponsors to be there to support and mentor the participants. Make sure that the participants are doing the program right away, but be there as a strong mentoring presence and support, and helping them get oriented to the program. The mentors of the corporate program really need to stay for a year. There's a lot of things that happen in the Toastmasters program that we teach people about leadership that happen on an annual basis. So for example, proxies. That's not a normal occurrence in a corporate training environment, but it's a really valuable process to learn if you're ever on a large corporate board where they have proxies, to understand a voting process and proxies, to understand how to submit renewals, or to actually manage the submission of monies, because the money's not necessarily going to be collected within the program, but who's ensuring that that's being looked after at the corporate level, right? So there's all these things that happen. Holding elections and running for election, what a gift of transferable skills that is in the corporate world. Imagine persuasively presenting something at a corporate event or a meeting, or running for office in the community because of skills that you learned in Toastmasters. So again, all transferable skills, but needing a lot of mentoring on behalf of, or by the sponsors and mentors of the program. And this is all something that the district really needs to look at a high level, is what is your corporate component in the district team? Do you have a liaison that is working with someone that's working down into the corporate environment? Now, I would suspect, because I'm not unique, that you'll find someone in District 81 that's on fire about the corporate world and making a difference there and bringing a Toastmasters program to them. And that's the person you want to create and ask them to be the corporate liaison. So they're going in, they're teaching people, they're working with the sponsors and mentors, they're supporting the area directors and division directors to understand the differences. That when you go into a corporate program, you're walking into a corporate training event, really. And who are you as an area director? Like, you may be there to observe, you may be there to meet with the leadership team, or called executive on the outside, but to meet with that leadership team to talk about their growth, development, what else we can do to support their learning. But we're not necessarily there to crack the whip around Toastmasters necessarily. So we're there to partner with them. So having a consistent corporate program liaison at the district level would be really important, just to make sure that the area division, the district team even, is aware and is sensitive to that. The other thing that at the district level is that we've done this in my district just this year, because we have about, I would say about 12 corporate programs in the greater Victoria area, where we have 2 divisions. And I was asked to work on the alignment of our divisions this year, and I suggested that we put the corporate programs in areas together. Excuse me. So we actually put our corporate programs in the same area with one another, even though geographically they might not be super close to one another physically, but they relate to one another. And then what we found out was, because it was easy to relate to, that people in the area, or in the programs in those areas, were raising their hands to be area directors, which we hadn't had before. Because now they're getting involved in the area and the division level because they relate, and we're talking their language in their environment. And so they feel empowered then to go on to the next level of leadership. So I thought that was a great outcome from that, just by putting them together. It also, when we look at why, so I'm going to leave that for a moment and bridge over to some of the reasons, if we look at why we think corporate clubs to date have failed. So some of the things that I've heard is isolation, lack of membership, lack of support, and people just not knowing about it, or not caring, or always being called away from the workplace or the time that they would be going to Toastmasters. So I don't know if there's any other criteria that's come up in the failing of your Toastmaster clubs in the corporate world, but if there is, if you want to post it, that would be great.
I think one of them also is, you touch based on it in the sense the timing of renewals. A lot of clubs or corporates, they start a club and then they pay by the time that they started, and then maybe that is 1 month before the cycle of dues. And then I say, but we just paid. So that is also one of the things that needs to be clarified a lot.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I've got a frog in my throat. Yes, thanks, Fabiola. That's a critical point, and that's if we look at the people that take on leadership positions within the program in the corporation, and we look at the position that's currently called treasurer in our community clubs, and we call that the finance manager or the finance liaison. And they are the people then that are responsible for liaising with the corporation to find out what the corporation needs well in advance in order to submit their payment of the contract they have with Toastmasters into our head office. And so it's looking at what is the system in the corporation that currently exists and how does our participant liaise into the corporation to make that happen. And that's a great leadership opportunity for anybody that's interested in working in finance, perhaps already works in finance, or aspires to make a step into finance. So when we look at the positions of that executive team of the program, and all those positions being liaison positions into the corporation, then you can see that it's great leadership because it gives them a reason and a purpose to meeting with higher up people in the corporation, and their face and name recognition exists. So they need to be proactive, and we as sponsors, mentors, and liaison into that club or into that program need to support them in getting that to happen. I just want to go back. I'm jumping all over now because I'm thinking of the time and wanting to cover so much, but I want to jump back for a moment in terms of the district support. I also believe, and I've thought about this a lot since I wrote my book, and I don't think I wrote this in the book. I've since written a total second edition of the book because there's been so many ideas and discussions since the book was launched. But one of the things that I realized is how important it is for the district to have liaison people that can stay with that program, that can be assigned to that corporate program. And they may not be there every single meeting or every single training session, but there has to be someone that's monitoring the unique delivery method that we have. And that brings us back to the things that the corporation really needs to be aware of, is that when we're selling them this product of learning, is that there is a unique delivery method. They're responsible for all the other stuff. We're responsible for the unique delivery method, meaning that everything's experiential, that there has to be impromptu speaking. There has to be prepared presentations. There must be oral evaluations. There is going to be grammar and a report on grammar, so we increase our grammar correctness. All the elements of the Toastmaster program need to be in there. And this is, again, bridging back to why corporate clubs have failed in the past, is when there's no monitoring of the unique delivery method, they turn into let's get together and talk. Or nobody prepared a speech. Does anybody want to talk? And it just becomes a get together and a waste of time for the corporation. And they're not going to support that. So we need to be, as a district, diligent in maintaining the integrity of the program that we actually sell them. That's our responsibility. Their responsibility is to make sure that the people are there and they're in attendance, etc. And then we have to also, as the provider of that service, provide accountability back to the corporation. So looking at, I use the role of the secretary as the administration person in this session in the Toastmasters program, and have them keep attendance, because the corporation will want to know, if I'm paying you to be there in work hours, were you there? So we need to have that information. We need to know if they're using Easy Speak or some other way of tracking their attendance and roles, then we've got a roll up. If not, we need to be able to account to the corporate representative what's happening and how they're doing and what progress is being made. They want to know who's taken on the leadership roles. And that's our job, to provide them with that accountability. And ultimately, they're going to look at return on investment. What are, are they meeting that? Yeah.
Okay, Pax, I
Linda.
have a question.
Yeah.
Hi. You asked about how many clubs in our district. We have 38 company clubs, and we have 12 that are government agencies. So it's semi corporate. And so I love the concept that you just did. And as Club Growth Director, I am just thinking that maybe we can have a subcommittee where we train corporate liaisons to go out there in each of their districts and just deal with that. So we're going to build that program. I really love it. Very informative so far.
Beautiful, Brenda. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, we really need specialists, because people that have only gone to a community club and have no interest in the corporate world, have never worked there, don't want to go near it, they're not going to buy into that. But there will be people that'll love to do this. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
But we don't think a lot about the universities also. This can benefit them also if we offer them this program as the corporate program.
What was the first part of the question, Fabiola? You cut out.
Okay, universities.
Oh, yes.
Clubs presently. Okay.
Yes, university clubs are another creature unto themselves, because they have semester systems, they have a revolving door, and they're, in my experience with them, very different. Much more a different way of handling them. Yeah. I haven't found that this model necessarily works. It might work part of it, but not for the enrollment and getting in. So it might work for you, and that's great. I'd love to hear about it if it does.
Just a note that we have actually had some experience here in Jamaica with university clubs. And one of the major challenges, as you mentioned, is the semester program. When they go off on that long break in the summer, no meetings are held. And so invariably, the programs do not meet for 2 to 3 months out of the year. And also at exam times, students are not interested they're focused on doing their exams. So I believe that a whole new model would have to evolve for university clubs.
Yes, thanks, Essie. That's been my experience as well. We've played, we'll just take a sidebar for a minute and talk about universities for just a short minute. My experience has been that if you go into universities and you create a Toastmasters program for their faculty, you can run it like a corporate program. But if it's for students, and it's student-based, you almost need to run it. What we did here in one of the universities was we invited alumni to join the Toastmasters Club on the campus. So people who had graduated from that university that were in Toastmasters to join that university club and become the foundation of it. Because we found that for the most part, Every time there was a semester, we lost all the experience. We lost all the knowledge, and we had no continuity. We had no treasurer, we had no president, we had nobody that even knew how to begin to do a success club program, nothing, or a DCP. So we created created a foundational piece in that program of alumni, and then they became the solid base where our students came and went on top of that foundation of alumni. So if you could get, say, 10 or 12, even 10 alumni to be there, so that you're never at risk of being a suspended club, and then you've got people coming and going on top of that. But those alumni have to be there full bore mentoring the whole time, because they're really the teachers of the Toastmaster program and the guide of that Toastmaster program. So it's a commitment, but if you can get a big enough base. But that's just my personal experience with student-based Toastmaster clubs, particularly challenging. Yeah. So one of the things that I've discovered in is one of the things you might want to check out also when you're looking at the corporate clubs and looking at having it a program and running it as a program. You can go back in if you currently got corporate club in place and it's not working, you in essence could go back in and renegotiate it, because chances are that the people that allowed you in the first place don't even know you're still there. And so you could start from scratch and build it into the corporate environment and put those pieces in place and then support it from a district. I found, as I was saying, that putting the corporate programs in similar areas has brought them out of isolation a bit, and they're actually collaborating and talking to one another and having virtual meetings with one another because they've discovered that they exist. And then the area director, when they're visiting, shares that, oh, I was over at Uptown and they're doing this. And then Seymour is going, oh, I didn't know Uptown had a corporate program. And so now they're finding out about one another. The other thing that's really important for the district is to, especially in these early days, is to have training for, just as we're doing today, talking about this so that people know, so that your membership knows, because they may run into corporate people that they're talking to and start talking about Toastmasters and talking about it in a club way, because that's what we basically know for the most part. And then to look at, so the other challenge has been to get corporate executive members out to training. They don't come to training. Guess why? There's nothing for them there. And their corporation hasn't said, you're going. So I, at the very beginning, in talking to the corporation, say, and to the leaders that want to be the leaders in this program and in that leadership development exclusive position, because there's 7 of them a year, or maybe every 6 months, depending on how they decide to run that, I say there's a responsibility here. You have to be willing to commit to going to leadership training, or you can't be the leader. And the leadership training happens it might happen in the evening, and it might happen on a weekend, and it's twice a year. But the expectation is that as a leader, you show up. But then the onus is on the district to actually have a session at that training that is relevant, totally relevant to the corporate world. So most of it would focus on leadership. You might have guest speakers on leadership. You might have a panel on what works in their corporate programs, how they resolve some of their challenges. They can share their successes and challenges with one another. A number of things that you could do, but to have a separate session for corporate. Talk about how their roles are going on that executive team. So the you know, looking at them as all liaisons into the corporation. How is that working? What have you found that works? So again, it's something to take aside and for your team, your district team, to brainstorm what kind of training can we provide the corporate world when we bring them all together and make them excited so they go out and say to the people that didn't go, you need to go to leadership training next year, because if you want to be president of this program and learn how to be president of a team, you need to go to leadership training. And we all have gone to things that have been absolutely fabulous and said, oh, that was worth my time and money. That's what we want those people to say when they leave corporate program training, when they come out of their leadership training for their corporate programs. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm going to pause and just ask if there's any questions, because I know we're getting near the end and I want to be respectful of your time. You know me, I'm a motor mouth. I can go.
Not at all. You have so much information. But District 81 members, what questions do you have for past international President Pat?
Essie, I hardly recognize myself when you refer to me as past international president. I look around thinking, this has got to be somebody old and...
Oh no, absolutely not. You are your fabulous self. Let me ask you a question while others may want to think a little bit. You know, yeah. District 81 has 26 countries, different countries, 4 different languages. And sometimes we do have a few corporations that happen in each area, in different islands. How do we translate, or how do we move from having one club, say, at Sandals in Jamaica and start another club at Sandals in St. Lucia, for example? What recommendations would you have?
Yeah, thanks, Essie. I love this question because I have been in Amazon. So Amazon has some Toastmaster programs, and I've been in Amazon in Seattle, and I've been in Amazon in Tokyo, Japan.
Wow.
And I've been in Amazon in other places. And I have challenged them to compete with one another. I say, how many Club 6, you know, how many DCP achievements did you have last year? How many CCs did you have? Why don't you run a competition in Amazon? You guys are all connected virtually with one another. Why don't you have a competition? Why don't you have joint meetings? And so I think that there's sometimes, again, even in the corporate world, Toastmasters is a very well kept secret. Mm-hmm. They don't necessarily know what kind of education's going on in their sister or brother organizations. And so I think that one of the things I love to do is, if I'm going into Amazon, is I research what's going on in the other Amazon clubs. And then I go in and I talk. I say, oh, do you know that there's an Amazon club in Tokyo, Japan? Here's a business card. Here's a contact name. Here's their sponsor. And it's amazing how that triggers people. And it's almost like the way has been made. The path has been created already. It's happened once in their corporation. And I think that transferring to another corporation is fairly easy, as long as the product has been well represented. And if not, then you want to go in and say, you know what, we're going to go in and clean up the other one, and we'd love to start with you as well.
Fantastic.
So just be willing, really come from a service perspective. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Brenda also has a question.
Yes, Essie. Thank you for that question, Essie, because that was also along the same lines that I was thinking. And for the first time in our marketing plan that we created, what our team did was we did a list of 100 companies that are all over in the Caribbean. So we have that in our marketing plan. And so now with your ideas, now is now going back to the drawing board and say, okay, that's a good concept. One of my questions is how do we bridge over. For instance, I'll give you an example, like Scotiabank has cuts now across the board. So it will affect 9 different countries. And the first thing they cut is, of course, these extra activities that they do in all the companies. What is your advice to the members who might still want to continue with Toastmasters outside of what their company is doing? Can we, as the persons who maybe help start the corporate team, then invite them or have them join another company? Because when we see the growth across the line, when they do the cut, it goes across the Caribbean also.
There's a couple of things that I would do based on my past experience. First of all, if the company people are being left without jobs, I certainly encourage them that this is when they really need Toastmasters, because they need to stay sharp on their listening skills, their interviewing skills, their presentation skills, and they need a support team around them. And Toastmasters is great team, great support. There's very few times you go to Toastmasters and somebody's negative all the time. It's a positive environment. So I really encourage people to stay with the team that's there for you and going to support you and hold you and look after your morale and your well-being. The other thing is if the corporate program is folding, then I definitely get in there and encourage people, although they'll experience something different at a club environment, in a community club, but I encourage them to go again because they'll find the same type of fellowship and be able to keep up with their skills, and they can transfer their membership, right? So always remember that people can transfer their membership if they're moving to a different club. Even in the corporate, if they're paid, they've still got a membership number and they can transfer that. So they'll have to pay probably then at the community club, but yeah, and if it's just the community, if it's the corporate club that's currently folding, and transferring those people over to a community club so they can stay involved in Toastmasters, there may be a possibility even for the corporation that would pay their community, if they're still working for the corporation, that their corporation would pay for their involvement to continue. So there's a number of ways that it can be handled depending on the circumstance. But I think that one of the things that in Toastmasters happens, because we are generally inexpensive in the field of training and development or professional development, we're inexpensive, that we look at when the market goes down, actually Toastmasters enrollment should go up. It's counterintuitive, but because we are so supportive and we give people the skills to stay in the marketplace, present themselves, keep their confidence and self-esteem going, being out in a group that's supportive, that actually is an increase. That's where we really can support the people, and that's a great selling feature.
Excellent.
So our enrollment actually could go up, ultimately can go up.
Much to chew on.
Yeah.
It's gone by so quickly, Pat. Thank you so much. We have approximately 20 persons online, and I know that we will use this information to the benefit of District 81. Your enthusiasm is infectious, and we truly appreciate the time you've spent with us. Honestly, I am sitting here and I'm thinking of hearing you on the stage in Chicago, and I'm thinking there's just such a wealth of information that you have to share on this particular topic. Really appreciate it, and expect to hear more from us, because we really are focused on building more corporate clubs here in District 81. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Essie, and your entire District 81 team. It was an honor to be part of your team today and your event. And absolutely, I'm here. I'll support you in any way I can. I'm here to help you. and just reach out. I know Fabiola knows how to get a hold of me. I know how Essie knows how to get a hold of me. Brenda, you'll find me. And just let me know how I can support you in your leadership development and the sustaining and growth of District 81. And so thank you so much for your hospitality, the honor of being with you, and best wishes as you adventure into the corporate world and set them on their ear.
And I hope it doesn't get too cold for you this winter.
We don't get snow where I live, so we're blessed to always be, the coldest it gets is maybe -1. So we're good. Yeah.
All right. Take care.
But if it gets real cold, I'll phone 81 and I'll be down.
That's right.
I'll come work with you on corporate clubs for corporate programs for a week.
That's right. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye, everyone.
Bye,
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Before everyone else leaves, can you please indicate for me which division that you're signing in from? Because we have incentives for the members who sign in for your division. So I have a few already, but I just wanted to make sure everybody just let me know. You could type it in the chat which division you're from so that we can tally. Thank you, and thank you for the time spent.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thanks so much. Have a great meeting.
Also, I would like to remind everyone, thank you all for being here. It was such a great to see all of you. And a reminder that the times that are posted are Eastern time. So we will see each other tonight, either at 7 or at 8. For most of you that were on early, that means at 8 o'clock we will start. And for the rest, like Ezzy and the others, it will be 7 o'clock for them. Okay?
Okay, ma'am. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
I'll send you a message.
Yes.
All right.
Essie, we have some work to do. I love this.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Fabi, do you want me to close it now or hold on?
Just leave the meeting and it will
No, let me let all the participants sign out and then I'll close off to make sure that we don't lose anybody, because I'm seeing them putting in their divisions now. So
okay, that's good. That's good. This was great. I loved it.
St. Martin. Okay, that's E. I love this. E, I see you. I see you. Let's go. Fabi, you didn't put your division.
Oh,
I'm missing
I
you.
didn't.
Hey. No. Bye, Mark.
Bye, Brenda. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for signing in.
Oh, you're welcome, and I'll see you guys later.
Okay, see you later tonight.
Judicial is closing in some islands.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
And
Scotia just sent out too that they are closing in 9 islands. But then, on a government level, and I was like, okay, I need to go in and see how much clubs we have. But how we did how we set up the club grow team this year, this would be perfect because we have a representative from each division. So if we train the 3 of them each to become liaisons, yeah, it would be great. Fabi's A. I'm another one for division E. From A. C. BB is 2. E. Division C is another one. Susan, E, E, and F. Sigana, B, Lindsay, Winch, F, Kanisha, F, Abby, A, Fabi. Oh.